The Ryder Cup is just around the corner with Team Europe looking to defend the title that they won just 2 years ago in Rome. But this time they're playing on American soil with Team USA hosting at Bethpage Black in New York in what is sure to be a very hostile and challenging atmosphere, I'm sure, for the visitors. One person who knows what it's like to be a part of Team Europe, but also part of a cauldron of an away Ryder Cup team, and played in one of the most remarkable of circumstances back in 2012. The Miracle of Medinah. Very pleased to say joining us is Nicolas Colsaerts. Nicolas, thank you so much for joining the Sporting Planet. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. As most people know, it's never really a problem for me to talk about Ryder Cup, like most people that have been part of it over the years. So no, I'm really happy to answer whatever question you have.
Well, first things first then. Let's give us a sense of the honour it was for you to play in the Ryder Cup.
It's the biggest honor you can feel, you can have. I think most of us that grew up watching the Ryder Cup in the 90s with the likes of Seve, Faldo, Woosnam, Langer, Olazabal, grew up in a very fortunate era where there was this friction, there was this rivalry with the US. Actually, matter of fact, the first Ryder Cup I ever saw on television was 1991 in Kiawah, which was the war on the shore. So the first introduction that I got to the Ryder Cup was rather an electrifying one, and it nurtured this love and this attraction that I've had from this competition since day one.
Yeah. So let's go back to when you got the call from Jose Maria Olazabal that you were one of his picks for 2012. What was that like? What was that conversation like that you had with him as well? Did you have a sense that you were going to be one of his picks?
Well, I'll be lying to say that I didn't have a good feeling about it. Having played so well, the majority of 2011 and mostly 2012, having won the Volvo World Match play in 2012, beating basically the who's who of who was up in the world rankings in 2012. And there wasn't really anyone else around me. I think I was like first or second out of the points. That was really making a statement in the last couple of weeks. And the call came at Gleneagles. Gleneagles was the last qualifying event. And I was called to go and meet Olazabal in one of the rooms that they had accommodated for him for to watch the golf in the US. And I walked into the room, and he was a scene like the Godfather. He was sitting in this big Chesterfield couch, and basically told me that I was going to be part of it. So being a childhood dream of mine, it was a scene and a moment I will never forget.
Well, the only rookie in the European team, of course, is Rasmus Højgaard, and I appreciate it's a very different captain in Luke Donald. But when you were part of Team Europe heading to the United States, how did they welcome you? I mean, how did they get across to you what it might be like to play in the US?
From a team's point of view, I think I was welcomed with open arms. I've always had a great relationship with everyone. For us continentals, there's a little bit of code to crack when it comes to people from the British Isles. And having traveled when in my amateur days playing the amateur circuit, I kind of always hung around the Brits or the Scots and the English, and I always knew the differences between all of you lots. So it's always been quite easy for me to blend in. And as a rookie, you basically just trying to find who you want to be and who you want to act, and I had a great relationship with Poulter and Westwood and all those barons. So my introduction into the team was quite smooth. Let's not also forget that I was playing extremely well, and they made me feel very comfortable to like they said to the captain, listen, we'd like to play with Nicolas. So as a rookie from Belgium, the first from Belgium to play in the Ryder Cup, that's something quite flattering actually.
Mm. I mean, there's one thing though where you're saying you're playing well, so you kind of expected that you were going to get the call up anyway. But this is a team event. How different is that in terms of your own sort of thinking going into a tournament like this, a competition like this? Because it is very different. You're not only playing for yourself, you're playing for Europe. So how different is that in terms of your own mindset going into it?
Well, it is very different in general because we play an individual sport and we usually just have to worry about what we do. In my case, it was pretty much piece of cake because I played a lot of team sport when I was young. I played a lot of field hockey and even the helpful part of playing amateur stuff, whatever you're playing national team or you're playing, pennants and interclubs in when I was young, was always something that I was attracted to. I always did well with others. I always liked the company of others. I've always liked the fact that it's not just about you. It's about putting the others in the best possible position to serve the purpose. And I think for that reason, it was extremely easy for me to go into a week like that and feel comfortable because, like you said, some guys that don't have this team spirit or team sport fiber it can be challenging for some.
Yeah. For those that aren't aware, I'm sure many do know what happened in 2012 and that Miracle of Medinah. Europe went into the final day, that the Sunday singles 10-6 down, and it was quite a feat for them to not only retain the trophy, but actually go on and win it as well. 14.5 to 13.5 was the final score in the end. What was the mood in the camp, Nicolas, after that second day when you saw that Team Europe were 10-6 down? How were you all thinking that you could fight back? Was that a realistic thought that was going through the dressing room?
Well, the mood had changed from the first day to the second. The first day, um, I mean, although I made quite an exceptional first game, I was basically at the back of the class when, with a big smile on my face, while the others were getting a bollocking. But the second night was very different. The second night, Olazabal really made a strong speech, and you could tell that he was really, really angry at the way the things were going after the first day, and with the way that two matches closed out on Saturday evening in Luke and Sergio winning at the end, and also Poulter and McIlroy. I mean, everybody remembers Poulter's, but there was two key games at the end that made or that put us in a situation where we were still within striking distance. There was going to be a big task at hand, but at the same time, the mood had changed. Everybody realized, like, hang on a minute, we're getting properly beaten up for the majority or at least half of the competition, all the way to lunchtime or late in the afternoon on Saturday. But all of a sudden, there was hope. There was that little glimmer of hope that made us realize that it was still achievable.
Yeah, I remember watching a documentary where many of your sort of teammates were talking about that Saturday session, that afternoon session, how it felt like it had turned, even though the scoreline didn't suggest that. Just that momentum might have shifted a little bit because of those two matches, like you mentioned, that Team Europe won. What I also loved was Lee Westwood speaking about your first four-ball match together, where he spoke about it was basically the Nicolas Colsaerts show, and that he just went out with you. It wasn't really. It was all about you, really. I mean, that's a real compliment, though, that he gave you, wasn't it?
Yeah. Listen, we don't see, Westy that often anymore, but listen, I mean, you have this kid from Belgium that plays in his first Ryder Cup. He's the first from his country to play in a Ryder Cup, and to pull such an incredible performance was beyond my wildest dream. And to then have the stamp of approval from guys that you've idolized, that you've looked up to, that you have then in this case played alongside them, and basically tell the whole world that that wouldn't have happened if this little guy from Belgium wouldn't have, produced an unbelievable performance, wouldn't have happened is yeah, I mean, it's every time I think of Westwood, I think of the day that we played together, and I'm quite proud that he's got one Ryder Cup point on his resume that's basically mine.
I love that. So let's fast forward, like I was saying, that Sunday. Then I think you went out sixth from Team Europe. Are you checking the scores at that point, or are you just simply aware of everything that's going on because of the buzz, the atmosphere, and everything?
Well, it's difficult. It's difficult to do because if the message that they tell you is, listen, you just worry about your points. That's the only thing that you need to worry about. But you can't help but look at the board, and especially when the things were unfolding. I mean, I think that I kind of the wheels came off in my match, because I ended up losing to Dustin Johnson when I realized that I was the first one in the lineup to possibly lose my game, and I think that's where I got thrown off by it, and within the stretch of 2 or 3 holes at the end, it was game over and lost my game, and felt such a feeling of defeat, of letting everyone down. It was probably one of the lowest point of my career and my life, not knowing what was going to happen an hour after that, of course. But yeah, it's difficult not to keep an eye on what's happening, especially the situation that we were in, knowing that we needed to come back from behind pretty drastically, and to see the thing slowly taking shape was quite incredible.
Oh, it certainly was. Just to watch it as I was as a viewer, it was absolutely incredible and will live long in the memory for so many Ryder Cup fans. So, what were the celebrations like then? Come on, tell us the truth, Nicholas.
Pretty bad. I mean, you take this the way you want to. I've said this before in interviews. From the moment the last putt is holed until you either pass out or you are dragged into the plane to fly back to London Monday morning, you have a drink in your hand. So it's pretty much full gas. But then, you have to understand that there is so much pressure, there is so much anticipation of this competition. You're under so much pressure during the week that once uh, the curtain falls or the show's over, and even more so with the way that it happened at the end. The adrenaline, I couldn't sleep for 3 or 4 days. Like, I mean, I think I slept 2 or 3 hours for 4 days, and I just woke up in the middle of the night like that and just couldn't get back to sleep. It was quite sensational. There's a picture of me circling around in this Jackson 5 wig somewhere that must have been taken really late into the team room
Do you
at
not
the hotel where
remember?
we were staying. Absolutely not. How do you want me to remember? I mean, like, it was still the day, about 10 years ago, we weren't so careful about phones and stuff like that. Now I think there's stricter rules at the Ryder Cup party where stickers have to go on phones. It's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I'd say so too. What were the US players like then? Because obviously going into that final day, there would have been optimism that they could get the job done. I think they needed only 5 points from the singles matches to win back the trophy. But what were they like once Europe had secured it?
Well, there was a little bit of everything. The biggest example was Keegan Bradley. Keegan Bradley was next to me in line when we were walking onto the stage for the closing ceremony, and I'd never seen somebody so white. He looked like he was gonna puke every 3 seconds. You could tell that it hit him really, really hard. Probably the hardest of all. I remember the face of Jason Duffner was pretty bad to see. And then when it comes to the party, you have the ones that come over and still party with us, which is hat off to them. Even Rome last time. I mean, one of the first guys in our team room celebrating is Brooks Koepka. He's the first one to walk in there, and he's the first one to have a good time. He's never the last one to have a good time either. But yeah, at end of the day, Medina is probably not the best example because I think for the majority of them, it really came as a shock.
Mm.
So the party mood wasn't really quite there. But in general, things are in good spirits
Mm.
on Sunday night, even if you win or lose.
Mm. So, in terms of winning away, it always seems very difficult for the visiting team to accomplish it. Obviously, you did it in 2012, but it doesn't happen as often. Why is it so difficult for a visiting Ryder Cup team to win away?
Well, I think it has become more difficult over the last 10 years or so because, the receiving team or the receiving captain has the luxury of setting up the course the way he wants to. So in general lines, when you go to the US, there's usually no rough. The greens are running at 13 on the stimp, which is basically what they play week in, week out on the PGA Tour. Where when we play in Europe, we tend to have the fairways a bit narrower, the rough a little bit higher, and the greens not any quicker than 10.5 on the stimp, because that's what we grew up playing on. So I think that's probably the first reason. The second reason is the 13th man. Whether you play in Europe or in the US, two different types of 13th man. Wherever you go in the US, it's always a lot louder. It's a lot more direct. It's a lot more, fan confrontation. The American fans have no problem telling you from up close how they feel and what they think about you or whatever you're doing. In Europe, it's maybe a bit more subtle. The scenes were incredible in Rome. I remember walking down the 16th fairway on the left-hand side. It was just like this sea of people, and incredibly enough, so many amazing things happened on that 16th green, and it was the signature hole of the Marco Simone golf course. So it depends venues. But Rome was absolutely incredible. The only thing I hope is that it's not going to get out of hand. I think a lot has been said about the New York crowd, but at the same time, the New York crowd is a let's say more. Um, they like their entertainment. They go to sport events maybe a bit more differently than they go in the rest of the US. And I'm pretty sure that, Luke and the boys have a plan in place to try to deal with that environment the best way they can possibly can.
You mentioned obviously being involved in Rome. You're one of Luke Donald's vice captains for the last Ryder Cup, and this time around, he's pretty much gone with the same team that won it, as I say, in Italy. Apart from the Højgaard twins, where Rasmus has replaced his brother Nikolai, what do you make of the fact it's quite an unchanged side? Does that consistency perhaps show just how good these European players are?
Yeah. I mean, there's been this change of guard and barons. Now we've got our Rory, John Ram, Tyrrell Hatton, Tommy Fleetwood, newcomers like Ludwig Eberg. Shane Lowry is quite vocal. He's a little bit like the heartbeat of the locker room. Robert McIntyre has developed into an incredible golfer, an incredible season on the PGA Tour. But yeah, the funny fact is that you got one twin replacing the other. We've had the Molinaris before, and now we've stepped up our game, and we're taking twins on board, which is quite incredible. But I think it shows that our European stalwarts are extremely good at what they do. They look at Tommy Fleetwood winning the FedEx after all this talk about him never been able to get over the line on the PGA Tour. I mean, it's we're getting into this Ryder Cup with I believe great momentum.
And in terms of the vice captain role, I want to ask you about that, what it entails, because again, many people listening to this might not be quite aware of exactly what a vice captain does when it comes to the Ryder Cup. Just give us a kind of idea of that role.
Well, it starts months and months ahead of the actual week, where you're on the ground and you play with potentials that could make the team. People that the captain Luke is looking at. You try to establish a relationship with them. Depending on different personalities, I would have been more attracted to certain type, and Eduardo Morinari more to others. He has a tight relationship with Victor Hovland and Matthew Fitzpatrick, so he would be more into that sort of clique, let's call it that way. And then the week of, you are basically there to relay as many information as possible to whatever question the captain has. It's very difficult for the captain on the week to be everywhere. There's going to be moments and spots where he will not be able to make. Which is, I think, why somebody probably told Keegan that it's not a good idea to play and be a captain at the same time, because it's quite a difficult job to do. There's so many things you have to do, and especially as a receiving captain. When you're a receiving captain, there's a lot more things you have to put in place prior to the week. So it's much more work than people imagine. And I think that Luke will be very happy to be asked to captain this European side a second time being away, because he's done all the hard work of captaincy the first time in Rome 2 years ago, and now in Europe the only thing he has to worry about is his team, and try to put these 12 guys in the best possible place to perform.
And you mentioned Keegan Bradley, the US captain. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about whether or not he should play. I mean, would you have been scratching your head if he actually had decided to play? Not just based on the captain's role. Well, I know it primarily is based on the captain's role, really, because there is, as you say, so much to do. Yet he is such an effective player for Team USA. So you can kind of understand why that discussion was taking place, I guess.
I think there would have been conversations about Keegan being a playing captain. It's just such a difficult thing to do. But then America is known to like a happy ending story. So I think that that's probably the only thing that kept the hope alive to maybe play and captain together. But listen, you've got these two captains know each other extremely well. You've got Luke and Keegan. They've known each other a long, long time. They live very close by in Florida, and I think there's going to be a huge amount of respect in Keegan because Luke won last time, and we have the cup in our hands, and we're the one trying to make sure that it stays ours. And Keegan, with being not selected last time and being given this captaincy maybe a little bit early in his career, with all this playing captaincy discussion on the table, also sends a message to his 12 players that, now I'm just going to be a captain. I think
Mm.
they will have a huge mark of respect for that, as in like, hang on a minute, I'm a player on this team, and this guy basically could have played it and decided to sit on the bench and just captain us in the week. I think they're going to look at him with, and maybe would that give them that edge? I don't know, but I'm 100% sure that the guys would look at Keegan in a very respectable way.
And just the camaraderie, it just seems to just sweep through Team Europe. We see it so often how close they all seem to be, and just hearing everyone talk about their experiences. Obviously, win or lose, it still seems to be a wonderful unified camp. And I don't know if it seems less so with Team USA, but sometimes there just seems to be a few fractures, shall we say? But is that a uniquely European thing then, that everyone is just so close in that team?
I think I think there's many different reasons for that. You know, we've always been the underdogs in this competition. Since inclusion of the continent to the team. Historically, for the ones that don't know, this used to be USA against GBNI. And then since Europe got involved, we started to see a reverse trend. Before Europe was introduced. The USA were way, way, way ahead. And so the Continentals came to the rescue, and now we are clearly ahead into the matchup.
We are so
Since
grateful. We are
yeah,
very
you should
grateful.
be. You should be. But no, the fact that we are able to put people from the United Kingdom and continentals, and even within continentals, you have your Spanish that are hot-blooded, and you have your Germans that are, clearly different, Scandinavians that are also a different type or a different breed. Then you've got Belgians, which are half and half. So I always find it a fascinating thing to be able to put so many cultures, so many different sense of humors, and so many different personalities together in a room, and to be able to make it work and understand each other by just a glimpse of an eye. I find that a fascinating thing. Bottom
Mm.
line is the Ryder Cup is a golf competition, but it's mostly about people's management.
Mm. Yeah, and that's where you and as a vice captain and the captain have to come together and ensure that you've got the most harmonious team you can possibly have, I suppose. But also, they've got to be the best of the very best as well.
Listen, you come up with a plan, you try to do the best you can to put everyone in the best possible state to perform, and then after that, let's not forget it's match play. Like anything can happen. I mean, we saw last time, Victor Hovland and Ludwig Eberg, putting Scotty Scheffler to tears on the 11th screen, 9-8, game over. So you still rely on how your players are performing, and you still rely on who you're playing up against. You can, let's take my case in Medina. I played against Steve Stricker and Tiger Woods with Lee Westwood. I basically played it on my own. I made 8 birdies and an eagle, but I could have also lost the game, and
Hmm.
my performance would have been completely obsolete. So you need a little bit of luck. You need a couple of putt here and there, or chip in on 13 on Friday makes the difference. And so it's always incredibly, for a competition where there's so many games in 3 days, it's always incredible of how tight it can be.
I can well imagine. Have you ever played Bethpage Black?
No, I've never been to Bethpage Black. To Bethpage Black. All I know is just like these big avenues with a little bit of terrain movement. I also know that there's a few spots where there's a couple of green and tee boxes next to one another, which I think is going to make great arenas. Saw a picture of the first tee and the 18th green coming right alongside it. Yeah, I think well, we've all seen US Opens at Bethpage. I think it's going to be a great arena for this.
Yeah, and I know you sort of might not want to nail your colours to the mast as such, but who do you think will win this one? Come on, Nicolas, I've got to ask you. You knew it was coming.
I mean, do you expect any other answer than us?
I know.
Um, but yeah, well, all joking aside, I think we have a realistic good chance to go over there and do something that hasn't been done since Medina. So we did in 2012. A lot of our guys are playing well. And like you said, we have 11 of the 12 members from Rome present. There's going to be a lot of familiarities along each other. I think we're going to get into this week extremely comfortable. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't know what we're up against. It's still, you're still going to have to play your heart out, and USA on their home soil will not give it away for free. So it's an amazing challenge to have. Well, you have an amazing chance at doing something quite incredible, and I think we're looking good.
Do you ever sometimes wish we had more Ryder Cups or more similar sort of type events where we're getting the US against, Europe as such?
Yeah, but it wouldn't be the same. The reason
Yeah.
why, this is so special is because it's every 2 years. It's because you go each side of the Atlantic every single time, and it leaves just enough time for bragging rights, and it leaves just enough time for an anticipation of the next one. I think it's great. Look, why are the Olympics special? Because they're every 4 years, and whoever holds the gold for the 100-meter final is the ruler of the world for 4 years. Like, isn't that cool?
Yeah, very much so. Just lastly, how are you? Because I know you've had some illness issues in the past. So how are you?
Yeah, all is good. I'm closing out on 500 events on the DP World Tour in a couple of weeks, which is a
Wow.
massive milestone. Yeah, I'm not as engaged as I once was, but this thing is in my blood. When you've been doing this since you're 12 years old, and it's the only thing you've been thinking about, sometimes you get a bit tired of it. But at the same time, I look back on everything that I've been able to do, and some of the places that I've been in the last 25 years doing this as a job is quite incredible, and extremely grateful.
Yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this Sporting Planet. Thank you, Nicholas.
No, no problem at all. Anytime.